Good afternoon, everyone. This is George Sandman. I am the founder and CEO of Growth Drive, and today we're going to talk about the core concepts, the methodology and process that Growth Drive, it's inside the Growth Drive system for growing private business profits and value. And this is in preparation for our upcoming summit, but it applies generally. If you want to understand the core concepts, we're not going to get into how, but we're going to get into really the what and why. And so here we go. The concepts we're going to talk about are in my book, The Growth Driving Advisor, and I'll refer to chapters in that book as we talk this morning. But in this book, there is a methodology and a process for working with clients and then helping them achieve their wins, right? So here are the core concepts we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about strategic intent. We are going to then move into strategic capacity, right? So what capacity does the business have to deliver on the intent? We're going to talk about the 3 dimensions of business growth. If you could please mute your microphone. Thank you. We are going to look at transferable business value, really the impact of strategic capacity on business value. And then we'll close out with the execution leadership system, Growth Drive's business operating system, and I'll make a few comments there. Now, this entire methodology and process is the framework, if you will, for the C3D certification. Optional, available to both Growth Drive subscribers, members, people at large. There's no prerequisite for taking the course. C3D looks at 3 dimensions of growth through the lens of an engagement, starting with our very first conversation with the CEO and going through long-term execution. And that's the Growth Drive process, right? Many of you have seen this slide before. We're going to zero in on key elements of this process, starting with CEO clarity. So this is a process that starts with marketing, right? Before we've even engaged with a business owner, referrals, working with COIs, meeting with the CEO, meeting with their senior leadership team, involving the CEO and their team in creating strategy and then in executing that strategy. And it's all the name of the game here is increasing strategic capacity to deliver the strategic intent in a way that has a collaborative accountability. So let's start with CEO clarity. Guys, when we're sitting with a CEO, where C3D starts, where the book starts, is at the very beginning. Now, I'm just going to tease out a resource that's available to all of you. It's the Clarity Level 1 Strategic Capacity and Business Value Report. And if you haven't yet had a chance to read through it, I would encourage you to, because a lot of the concepts, the core concepts we're going to talk about today, are woven throughout this document. And if you just look at the table of contents, you'll see that this story plays out. Business metrics, the analysis of the business, where the business is today in terms of its capacity to deliver. We talk about the methodology, scoring the business, what the business's score is and what that means, how that impacts the value of the business. We calculate a specific value for the business. In fact, we talk about several different looks at value. And then we give some preliminary recommendations for taking action. All of that, if you think about it, is the core concepts and the process are woven throughout. So taking a few shots here out of the report, but you'll notice here, confirming your strategic intent is right here, key concepts number 1. And we get into strategic capacity, scoring, explaining it, transferable value, the impact of strategic capacity on value, the range of values conversation. And if you see here on this last recap page, we revisit strategic intent, strategic capacity, transferable value, the 3 dimensions of growth, right? So all of the concepts we're about to go through are in this report, and it is a fantastic resource for educating your clients about what they're going to need to do to get the success they want. And I'll stress, educating clients. How do we and our clients make an informed decision about working together? Okay, so it all starts with intent. And I use the word intent rather than goals because it's a qualifying term, right? How do we qualify our client's commitment? And qualifying is important. If someone doesn't have adequate revenues or willingness to invest or willingness to change, that does not mean that we can't help them, and we can help them by educating them, and we might make paid for our services, right? We're delivering value, but what we really want to do is hey, Kent, welcome. We are qualifying our client to understand their commitment. And the reason we use the word intent rather than goal is because we need to make sure that our client intends to get there. My goal is to have value of $20 million in 3 years. Great. What are you going to do to get there? How committed are you? It's a qualifying statement, and intention comes out of. We get into it. It's a terrifically powerful concept. Now, when we get into intent, we've all talked about these statistics. These are at the heart of the growth drive methodology. Why do CEOs call you? Why do they take action? 62% want to grow their business. 21% want operational freedom, right? Make this business easier to run. 17% are preparing to sell, only to find out 83% of the time that they don't have sufficient value from the business to fund their personal wealth goals or their legacy or, right? That comes from interviews with over 50,000 that your colleagues have done with over 50,000 CEOs. And it's out of that analysis that I eventually described the 3 dimensions of growth. And we're going to get into those in detail in a few minutes. So all of this is going to be familiar to you, but let's see how this plays out. So let's start with strategic intent. And does the concept of intent work? And it is a very sophisticated way of looking at the world. And my favorite resource for learning about the power of intent and how it plays out outside of business, but in a very sophisticated and effective organization, is from General Mattis's book, Call Sign Chaos, where he really drills into where, I won't flatter myself with being in the same category, but where in my book, I talk about strategic capacity. That core concept for me is this similar, analogous to intent as a core concept in Mattis's book. If you haven't read it, it is terrific. Intent is the starting point. And here is where intent can be used in 2 different ways, right? Intent is the commitment to goals, but intent is also how we communicate those goals to the people who are going to help us make them reality, right? The intent that we verbalize must accomplish the mission. It's got to be achievable. We have to be transparent about it. And if those of you who are familiar with effective senior leadership, our growth driving objective, transparency, clearly understood, ability to deliver, those are all proven to drive organizations forward in a very effective and what's the word I'm looking for? Very effectively, in a very resilient way, right? How do we allow people to make decisions without micromanaging them? That's what it comes down to when we communicate our intent throughout the organization. And we have a terrific tool for leading this conversation, the growth conversation, the conversation around goals and the intent to reach them. And it's the Growth Drive Strategy Planner. It's 1 page. And this is designed really to guide a conversation. And you can click on this link, click on the image if you have this deck, which you will all be able to download to lead a conversation. And we're going to start with personal. What does this business need to deliver for you? And then we get into professional. How does your professional vision support your personal vision? Then we get into professional mission, strategy, and on down. 1-year goals. Who is going to help us accomplish this goal? Right now, we're looking at key senior leaders. What happens when what options have we created when we reach the goal? And only then can we get into the objectives and key results, the 3 dimensions of business growth that we're going to want to harness to get there. Okay. So this is an excellent resource for you to lead a conversation, the growth conversation about intent. Chapter 1 of my book, Becoming Your Client's Guide. At the very beginning of C3D, we spend a lot of time talking about the growth conversation and how to facilitate that conversation, active listening. So we start, before we get into the company, we really want to make sure we confirm where does the story need to go and how will the business contribute? Okay, intent. Where do you intend to take this business? Where do you intend to take your life? Now, we need to make that intent actionable? That's the question, right? How will we make intent actionable? And this is a giant differentiator for you as business advisors when you're out interacting with business owners, COIs, and others, because you know how to make intent actionable. And there are only 3 intents, guys. 50,000 people were asked. They didn't give, of 6 choices, they only hit on 3. Grow, make it easier, sell it. Okay? How do we make that actionable? Strategic capacity. Now, in this deck, I'm about to get into a few slides that have a lot of words on them. That is designed for you to be able to go back and refer to if you download this deck and you want a refresher. I'm not going to read them to you. So let's get into strategic capacity. And strategic capacity is our central tenet, and it plays out. It is the first 2 words in this report and in the strategic capacity planning report, which is generated after the second level of analysis. So strategic capacity. Strategic capacity, it really is a way of translating how this business looks to the market, right? Strategic capacity refers to a business's ability to operate like a best-in-class competitor. Best-in-class businesses with high strategic capacity generate predictable profits and cash flow and growth, okay? So strategic capacity in your mind drives growth and value. And if we look at a strategic capacity score, and the data is in, guys, low strategic capacity, businesses with low strategic capacity struggle. They tend to be stagnant. And businesses with high strategic capacity have a winning culture. They're delivering profits, cash, growth, fun places to work, satisfying the shareholders' needs, etc. Strategic capacity drives growth and value.
Basically, what you're saying, pardon me, just a question is strategic capacity is how it's performing currently and what is its potential going forward. Because if I'm looking to buy this business, I want to know exactly what I'm getting, but what also can I do with this to make it better?
That's exactly right. Thank you very much. Because when we find a business, I'm going to get into that. I actually, in just a moment, I'm going to address that specific point. You are spot on. Okay. And it's the private capital markets perspective, and the private capital markets buy businesses to get a return, right? So if we sell to private equity, we sell to a strategic, we sell to another individual owner, they're going to want to take the asset, increase its value, and potentially monetize it for themselves. And the private capital markets look for low risk, high return investments, right? Those are businesses that can demonstrate a past record and can create credibility about future promise of delivering profits, cash, and growth. And the way that the private capital markets identify these businesses is through due diligence. Due diligence measures a business's capacity, strategic capacity, to deliver cash and value going into the future. And so it stands to reason that if we help a client redesign their business, right, so that it could successfully complete due diligence, regardless if they're going to go through that process, then they are going to have redesigned the business to be among those that are likely to generate predictable profits, growth, and maximized value. Okay, they're 2 points. They're 2 of the same point. So I had a little fun. At our upcoming summit, guys, we're going to talk a lot about AI. And so I thought, okay, well, why don't I throw this as a prompt into my 2 favorites, perplexity. And here's the answer we got. The prompt was, in the context of the growth drive methodology, what is the definition of strategic capacity? Perplexity came back with its own take. It's an organization's ability to achieve its goals and objectives in a sustainable and predictable manner. Thank you, Perplexity. Obviously an outstanding tool. And then I put exactly the same prompt into ChatGPT 40. And it came back with a very similar explanation. I put these in here just, first of all, to highlight that, AI can summarize this stuff very well. And two, that, we have enough resources in the market that these tools are able to generate answers. So as you're out there marketing, working with clients, creating deliverables, there's enough about Growth Drive out there that you can start generating first passes. So it's good stuff. And then ChatGPT came back with some more depth. Okay, and the key aspects of strategic capacity. And it really is resource optimization, scalability, agility, agile. Bob, you and I were talking about that yesterday, right? An agile process of cascading sprints, how to create sustainable growth, and leadership and vision. And this is not a training on how to identify a vision. We'll go back to the growth conversation, and I'm happy to answer questions about that, okay? Now, our vision, I didn't know I had done that. Our vision is to increase the strategic capacity of $1 trillion worth of pre-middle market and middle market businesses, increase their strategic capacity in the 3 dimensions of business growth. So let's drill into the 3 dimensions of business growth. This is how we meet our clients' intent and take action, right? And help them deliver against that intent. So 3 dimensions of business growth. There's a chapter on each in the book. We go into great detail. The first dimension is predictable profits and cash flow. And when we enact those growth driving objectives, we make the business easier to run, create a launch pad for growth, and it's accretive to the value of the business, right? If you have predictable, profitable cash flow, that is going to increase the value of the business. Now, you'll remember that 62% of CEOs want to grow. And that is the second dimension. The second dimension is predictable, sustainable growth. And as we're moving in those dimensions, what we're doing is we're creating a business engine that can deliver predictable, transferable value, maximized value at its revenue, okay? So that it can achieve one of the the highest multiples for the business and even generate extra turns at the deal table, okay? So how do we line up the advice we're going to give as advisors with our client's intent and deliver results? And that's where the 3 dimensions of growth it works very, very well. And you guys are the ones who report back that it's intuitive, that your clients get it, that they are excited by the concept, and that's outstanding. So, and you'll see here, this is a screenshot out of that level 1 report. Your stated strategic intent is to grow revenues, and then we get into a conversation about the 3 dimensions of growth. So, the next concept: how do we make profit and value growth actionable? And I'm going to pause here. There are 2 ways to go about this, just philosophically. There's an internal look, which companies like EOS, excellent program, right? The EOS tends to facilitate an internal conversation. What do we see as our strengths, our weaknesses, our opportunities, our threats? What do we think we should do about it? And where the implementer actually is precluded from delivering advice. Now, I know that not all implementers follow that guideline, but that is the intent, right? To borrow a phrase. The other way to look at it is to say, hey guys, here's how you're running the business. What is the outside world doing that you might adopt as a best practice and move the business forward? So not what you think, but what can we learn might work and then prioritize for action, take action, etc. So how do we make profit and value growth actionable? Growth Drive takes let's look at what the market's doing, what are best-in-class competitors doing, and let's adopt those, let's reach those objectives ourselves. So Growth Drive is an objective and key result-based methodology, OKRs. In the 3 dimensions, right? We just went through them. Each of the 3 dimensions has 8 growth-driving objectives, which you're going to look at in a sec. And then under each of those growth-driving objectives, there's approximately 5 key results, 7 in some cases, 4 in others. But so objectives, 24 objectives, each of which in turn has key results. And here are the 3 sets of 8, 24 in total, growth driving objectives. And here is the power of the system. When your client says, let's take a client who wants to grow. Okay. I want to grow. And by the way, if you go and Google grow, last time I did it, you go and Google grow my business, you're going to get pages of marketing. Marketing is good. However, before we start spending money on marketing, we might want to make sure that we have created a launch pad for that marketing, into which that marketing, those leads are poured, right? Marketing should be generating leads. That's the power of the system. So I would be saying, listen, Diane, I know you want to grow the business, and you said you want to invest in marketing, and you're going to buy some more machines and hire some people, and that's terrific. Before we do that, here's my suggestion. We might want to make sure that your senior leadership team is aligned with growing the business, that they're accountable to growing the business, that we've put that and that can get, I'm not going to go into training mode here, but there is a lot of work that can be done and a lot of opportunity for you to work directly with COIs, wealth advisors, insurance advisors on those specific points. Let's make sure that your people are very efficient and that we minimize turnover, right? That you're generating high recurring revenues, that you have margins at or above the industry norm, that you are measuring your performance, that you're getting usable financial data. And before you start investing in marketing, does it make sense to have a sales process into which to pour those leads, a sales process that's used by all, and that the sales is telling the truth to the market, is getting good orders that we can then hand over to operations. Operations is delivering on time and to spec in a way that generates high customer satisfaction. Diane, does that make sense to you? Yes, it does. So what that also allows us to do, if Diane had said, I just want to make this easier to run, I just want to work 40 hours a week, can we do that, please? Yes, Diane. First dimension. We're going to create predictable profits and cash flow. We're going to delegate your accountabilities with accountability, right? We're going to delegate with authority and accountability, and we're going to make this thing easier to run. Now, clients will often they may say, just make this easier to run. The data tells us that revenues, when you implement those growth driving objectives, that revenues are going to start to pop. It also increases personal satisfaction, like work-life balance, decreases stress, a little less mail-ox, right? And they may lean into growth. So when we've moved in the 2 dimensions of business growth, we've done a lot of the heavy lifting that it'll take to deliver maximized transferable value. So this becomes it's dimensions, it's a holistic process, but that we are able to deploy as advisors in intuitive, intelligible, approachable, well-defined sprints that we then cascade from sprint to sprint to sprint. The system of OKRs is actually inspired by Agile, which was developed in software development, highly complex, team-based development work that actually transports really well into running a business. All right. 3 dimensions of growth, 24 growth driving OKRs. And it's very simple. My intent is in the dimension. The objectives are laid out in the methodology. Each of those objectives has a key result, and we can get guidance on achieving those key results through in the technology using the execute guidance module. All right. So this is how it looks in the clarity level 2 analysis. I picked on effective senior leadership here. We have the growth driving objective. It is defined, right? The objective is to have an effective senior leadership team that is aligned with and accountable to the business's vision and mission. Vision and mission will be informed by the shareholders' goals for the business, right? Helping the shareholders achieve their objectives. Here are the key results. There are 7 in this case, but we lay out the 7. And then in an execute guidance, we'd say, okay, here's some guidance. It's not advice, but some guidance about how you might make sure the shareholders have time-bound goals for the business, which are shared with the senior leadership team. All right. So that's all inside the software itself. Now imagine that you've had your growth conversation. You've confirmed intent. Guys, if you don't confirm intent and be very careful and diligent in making sure you get it right and that you and your client are crystal clear on what that ultimate intent is, then if you don't take the time to do that, you might create a strategic plan. All exit plans are strategic plans, right? A strategic plan that is headed in the wrong direction, right? Or that is, well, we liken it in the C3D certification to swinging, imagine swinging a golf club, and you can tell I play baseball and not golf. Imagine swinging a bat or a club and stopping when you get to the ball. I want to grow this to 20 million. Well, do you want to grow it to 20 million, or is 20 million a phase line, a waypoint on our way to a further destination? Or do we hope that the 20 million is going to deliver something, create some options? Need to have that conversation. All right, so we carefully define intent, then we measure our capacity. Now, if we're focused on growing profits and value, we're going to grow profits. It's a dimension 1 and dimension 2 engagement. If we're going to focus on growing business value, those 2 dimensions will be accretive to business value, but we want to make sure that that business value is also transferable. How does that play out? What's really cool is that when we start talking about business value and we are leading a conversation about the value of the business to its shareholders, aka, hey Diane, here's what the business is going to mean to you, to your wealth, to your family, etc. We can start a conversation about the impact of strategic capacity on value, on multiples, and rather than focusing on $1 of profits, we might be focusing on $6 plus of value, of personal wealth, if we can transfer it, right? So how do we lead a conversation? And this is what's powerful about strategic capacity. You take a business that has $1.7 million worth of EBITDA, they could get a 2 times multiple, right? It's at the bottom. This is a manufacturing business, bottom end of the range of multiples. It's worth 3.4 million. One, your client is going to say, I'm shocked. I thought my business was worth about 7, because they think that they're going to get the top multiple. It's human nature, right? I'm going to be fine. Why do people storm the beach when they're getting shot at? Because they think they're going to be fine. Take a business with 3.4 million when it comes to funding retirement is not a lot of money, especially for someone who's used to taking money at will out of the business, living very comfortably. I'd be saying to Diane, you don't have to do a 6x on revenue. You have to do a 2x on revenue. But if we increase the quality of your business, your strategic capacity, we can move your 3.4 million of transferable value to 20 million. And that is simply by redesigning the business so that it can credibly create credibility that it will deliver profits and growth going into the future. Okay. So very important, transferable value. And we use the range of business values chart. It's in the software to do this. Now, this business has a maximum value of $4.2 million. It only has strategic capacity of 47. The average business comes into the system with strategic capacity of 54.13. So in the, approximately 50. Think of that as 50th percentile. I'm using rough numbers. By the way, that is played out, explained, and you can use to educate your client in the strategic capacity and business value report. Your strategic capacity is 47. It's 47, which means your company presents risk, right? So you will only be able to monetize as the business is run today. You've created a $4.2 million asset that you can only monetize for approximately $2 million. Business is worth what a willing buyer will write a check for. But this is what we would anticipate, that after completing due diligence, you might get an offer at 4.2, but after completing due diligence, after we've gone and analyzed all of the risks inside the business, you would get a check for 2 million. That means the value gap is 2.2. That is the ROI for working with you. Okay. So strategic capacity is the private capital market's confidence in future profits and growth. Goes to predictability, predictable profits and cash flow, predictable sustainable growth, and that creates predictable transferable value. If a business can generate high confidence in the private capital markets, then it is likely to win a high multiple, right? Just talked about risk and discounts, right? People want to get paid for risks, and that's true whether we're buying a car, getting a credit card, buying a home, etc. So that discount is a value gap. And we can close that value gap by increasing, say it with me, strategic capacity. The value gap is how private equity groups make money. It's reasonable to expect to get paid for taking risk. Heck, that's why we start companies, right? We take huge risk, and that's why we get an outsized reward if we're able to successfully sell them. Private equity groups buy businesses that they understand very well using that lens of due diligence, where they know, okay, this is in my wheelhouse. Those are problems we know how to fix. We're going to buy it. And I'm not talking about roll-ups. I'm simplifying. We're going to buy this business and we're going to fix these issues. We're going to mitigate these risks, and then we'll sell it upstream. That's how pigs make money. If the value gap is the IRR for your services, your promise to the business owner is that you can help them execute a self-directed private equity play on their own business. And it really comes down to, do you want that 2.2 million in whole or in part going to a stranger or going to your family? Okay. So strategic capacity helps us understand the level of discounting that would take place during due diligence. By mitigating those discounts, by increasing strategic capacity, creating credibility, creating predictability, we are closing the value gap, which in turn helps close the personal wealth gap. Now, we've just covered a lot. When we're working with clients, right? Are you a 1 or a 5? If you're a 4, let me walk through that. I guess that is a core concept I could have covered. You'll hear that shorthand inside the Growth Drive community a lot. Are you a 1 or a 5? A 1 is a client talker. They want to talk about these issues with the client. A 2 is someone who wants to educate the client, and you might educate them about a number of issues, typically growth and or exit. And we're going to educate them. Great. A 3 is the architect. We're going to create the blueprint for redesigning this business to reach the intent that we've discovered. A 4 is the general contractor, right? The general contractor takes the plan and turns it into reality. And in C3D, we get in, we dig into being a really effective general contractor. And I will tell you, whether you intend to be an architect and a general contractor or not, those of you who are 2s, you want to be educators, right? Strategic capacity educators, exit educators. That's great. That is fantastic. It's a great service for your client. Ask yourself this question. Should you take the time, make the investment of time and treasure to understand what the architect and the general contractor will do so that you can hang in those conversations, so that if you're collaborating with those pros, you understand their perspective and their methodology? And I would argue that yes, you should. So let's talk about the execution leadership system. The execution leadership system is Growth Drive's business operating system. I'll talk about that in a couple of secs. I pulled again from Mattis's book here. Now, there are some implications. You've defined your intent. You know that everyone is aligned with your intent. You've unleashed their cunning and initiative. Love that, right? And that's what we want our people to do. And cunning in a positive way, right? Transparent sharing of information. If your client, way back when we were having our growth conversation, if they are not willing to be transparent and vulnerable with you is one, but transparent with their team, their stakeholders, frankly, the entire business, if they're not willing to be, then you know they're handicapping themselves. And we can either educate them into understanding that they need to share, or we can tell ourselves, okay, well, this is going to be a limited engagement and I probably should be out developing additional clients because this is a short-term gig. All right. Transparent sharing of information. And this is how General Mattis describes it. What do I know? Who needs to know what I know? And have I told them? Check, check, check. Orchestrate as opposed to control. Let's put the accountability down onto the shop floor and help people understand what it means to win. All right. Create a coordinated team. And if you think about this in the context of building a winning business culture, there is a ton of wisdom right here. And this is a 4-star. He's a full general who I had the great pleasure of knowing a few. The book's fantastic. Okay, I'll stop being a fanboy. All right. So let's pull out of that. All hands are aligned to your goal. Cunning and initiative unleashed. Transparent sharing of information. I'm going to show you how this plays out in the growth driving objectives and key results. Orchestrate as opposed to control. A coordinated team. Wow. Right? Who doesn't want to work, lead, enjoy, work with that business? So these play out they play out in the entire methodology and process, but they really come to light in 3 growth driving objectives: effective senior leadership, people productive and loyal, and strategic culture. Now, before we get into the business operating system, I want to make sure you're very, very clear on how these play out. So remember the words. Being transparent. The shareholders have written time-bound goals for the business, which are shared with the senior leadership team. Transparency. What else? The senior leadership team is accountable to the vision, mission, and strategy. There are some implications here. Believe me, they've been thought through and they're in the system. The senior leadership team meets regularly, and I don't care if you're doing scaling up, EOS, growth drive, metronomics, etc. Meeting and sharing data is critical. We meet regularly to review and discuss progress. And I'll show you how we do that inside Growth Drive in a sec. People, productive and loyal, the next growth driving objective. Our employees can understand the business's mission, strategy, and goals, and their role in executing them. The employees and contractors, this is a gig economy, understands the one number that defines their role. Guys, people deserve the dignity of knowing that they're getting paid what the market would bear, and that they understand what it means to do their job well, okay, and that it is reasonable and attainable, okay. Every employee or contractor is a member of a team, and those teams have documented metrics, right? We're sharing data to define its success, and then you know how the senior leadership team had to meet frequently? Every team meets frequently to review and discuss. So if you start thinking about how this is flowing out, the data is flowing out, the accountability is flowing out into the organization, and all of it driven to deliver our client, the business owner, the CEO, the shareholders' intent. Final point, culture. Spend the rest of the day on it. The business has written guiding principles. This is so important, that support execution of the vision, mission, and strategy. And I would simply say a strategic culture. If you go and grab a copy, log in and look at the Clarity Level 1 online report, right? The report tab. Go down to the bottom and look at the questions and answers and imagine the culture of a business, what the business would necessarily need to be able to do and what it would feel like to work in that business if all those answers were yes. Very, very powerful. That is a winning culture. And okay, so the business understands that maintaining a positive culture is a purposeful exercise. You need to have intent, borrow a term again. We need to invest time and treasure in promoting the guiding principles. That's why you can't simply say honesty is our core value. Hard work is our core value. So what? That's table landing. Okay. And then culture creates an ownership sense of belonging. All right. Now, if you think about intent and how it needs to play out, I hope you can appreciate how strategic culture, those will help build, and feeds a strategic culture. Cool. Now, what are the ingredients that we're going to pour into an execution leadership system? We have our clarity analysis, level 1, level 2. We have a map, right? A strategic plan. Now, strategic capacity and alignment around strategic capacity. The senior leadership team agrees, has a consensus view of current capabilities, of current capacity, right? Then we all agree at where we are on the map. Now we can start talking about executing against the plan, moving on the map, aimed at whichever of the 3 dimensions of growth are relevant. Start at the beginning, trust the process, and work your way through. Guys, I can't begin to tell you, trust the process. Those of you who are knocking the ball out of the park out there are using the process and and frankly, not really deviating from it, and are getting some terrific results for yourselves, for your firms, and for your families, okay? And the tempo we want to create, tempo is critical, right? We're going to do this every day, man, every day, every day, every day, and it's going to be fun. We got to do this anyways. We might as well do it having fun. What sets the tempo is sharing data on a regular basis with collaborative accountability. And I'm working with one of your colleagues, and his client has said, hey, listen, I want to scale the business with the right people in the right seats. And the way to smoke that out is to create collaborative accountability, because good actors will rise to the top and non-contributors won't have anywhere to hide, right? We're shining the light. Collaborative accountability. How does that play out? We're going to look at the business flow scorecard in a sec. Now, I hit on the fact that the senior leadership team, and you guys all know this, right? You're senior pros. The senior leadership team needs to meet regularly. Every team needs to meet regularly. Every working group needs to meet regularly. And we have an execution leadership system. It's in the, you can get a copy in the community in Circle. And there are descriptions and agendas for the annual strategic. That could be the kickoff of your new strategic initiative or the annual review of the strategic plan. Quarterly, monthly. So we go from strategic to quarterly, a strategic true up. Monthly is a macro tactical. Okay, how are we doing against executing our strategy? Weekly is strictly tactical. And then daily huddles are micro tactical. Those daily huddles, guys, those of you who have been in them and been in effective daily huddles, you know exactly how powerful those can be. 20 minutes spent every day. Okay, guys, where are we? What's good? What's not? How can we help each other? Those are killer. That is how Agile is able to generate software, hugely complex software, so predictably. Okay, so let's look at how that plays out. There's really, I'm going to pick on the weekly system. The execution leadership system is our business operating system. It is based on meeting agendas in which we keep score. So let's look at, if you could only do one thing for business, if you need to turn a business around in a hurry or get some good initial momentum, then the one thing I would say you can do, and there's no one on this call who's been with me when I did this, we implement this. There's only one thing, and I'm not dismissing the other meetings, they were important. You would lead this meeting. It's 90 minutes. Here's an agenda. This, guys, we're not in prison here, right? So this is a strongly suggested guideline for the time allocated. Meetings should be relatively light but there will almost always be some discussion. That discussion can get robust. But let's just walk through this. We're going to do 5 minutes to check in. Hey guys, and so this is something we all do inside the Growth Drive community. Those of you coming to the summit are gonna participate in it yourself. Anyone who's been in any workshop that I've ever led knows we're gonna get your number and in the weekly meeting, what's good personally, what's good professionally, and we just do a round robin. Who's gonna lead it this week? We're gonna celebrate what's happening in the company that's good news. Frank had a baby. Whatever it is, the production team really nailed their goals. The new marketing campaign, things this is open mic, right? We're not getting into data. Business flow. Now we're about to look at business flow, which is a scorecard, a flash report on the business. We're going to spend 20 minutes on that, and then we're going to identify issues. Okay. We're going to get back into the issues discussion. Then we're going to go look at our dollars, etc. You'll see how this plays out in business flow. Again, this is not a dicta. This is a suggestion for a meeting that's going to, you do it for a few weeks and you will be very, very pleasantly surprised. People, frankly, like dogs, we love a routine. We love knowing what it is, and the agenda does not change. It never changes. The data we look at is going to change every week, but but what we're going to cover in the meeting does not. Okay, so business flow. This is also available in Circle. It is currently a very simple 14-line. This should never be more than, your scorecard should never be more than about 20 line items. If it gets more than 20, it starts going to 2 pages, start crossing stuff out. What's critical to discuss? The way business flow works, guys. Now imagine your Monday morning meeting. What's good, everybody? What's your number? I'm a five. I shot birdie in golf. Whatever it is. We're going to eventually, quickly, we're going to move to this scorecard. This is the dashboard. How's the business doing? How are we doing against our Moneyball KPI? You as the advisor, if you help them identify that one number, and every business has one number, and we're going to track that every week. Because everything else that happens below it is going to help that number move in the right direction. Gross revenue. And now, guys, these are just suggestions for a starting point that'll get you launched. You're going to have to true it up for your client. Your client say, we've been tracking X for a few months now, and I don't really think it's meaningful. I think we should actually be looking at Y. Great. Customer satisfaction is in here, Net Promoter Score, sales pipeline value, marketing pipeline. Right? How many we're going to start to understand how many leads it takes to make $1 of revenue and when, right? Pipeline velocity. So now we're starting to be able to predict, say it with me, profits and cash flow, revenue. What's our recurring revenue as a percentage of the total ratio? And you're going to track your strategic initiatives. It's not on here, but if you go down a couple of lines, we're going to start tracking the execution of our sprints, the sprints that take our strategic plan and are turning it step by step into reality. And it's very simple. We are green, systems go. Orange, we've got some headwinds, there's a problem, something's slowing us down, and red, we're stalled. And the CEO in the execution leadership system, execution is not managed, it's led. The CEO's job, and I know there's at least one fractional CEO on the call here, is to ask why. Right? Why is cash flow? Why are we down $13,000? That's not an accusation. It's like, hey guys, why? Could be a very good reason the cash flow is down. Why? Why are we not? I see that our leads have dropped off. Why, etc. Or why is there a sudden bump in the sales pipeline value? Is there a big opportunity? If there's a big opportunity, operations needs to know about it, right? Okay, so the scorecard in a weekly meeting, and the weekly meeting in a rhythm of meetings. So imagine having this meeting every week, and once a month we take all this data and we do okay, how are we doing in the larger scheme of things? And every quarter we say, okay, how are we doing against our strategy? Is our strategy still sound? Are we still moving towards the goal? And once a year we have a big analysis, and we look at the whole picture again. Because things change, and in this world they change quickly. So weekly meetings, daily huddles, all the way up to our annual, potentially facilitated, and I know several of you facilitate these annual meetings. Very complicated, very valuable for you to deliver, revenue for you and value to the client. So, and all of that, if you think about what we've just discussed, helps us play out this process. And if you can go as deep as you want, and then either the senior leadership team or someone with whom you collaborate, if you want to be a 2 and a 3, you don't want to be a 4, you're going to collaborate with a 4, or the senior leadership team is going to perform the 4 function, etc. How deep do you want to go? Because the methodology and process starts with even before, but let's say it starts with the growth conversation, creating CEO clarity about their intent and the business's capacity to get there. We get the team's consensus on strategic capacity. We deepen that understanding with a deep analysis, preferably with the whole team. Now imagine if you have all of those voices in this process, you have the entire senior leadership team understanding the vision, the mission, understanding where the business is today, where it needs to be tomorrow, and contributing to the plan. That is really healthy. Not done by committee, but people have their voice heard. And if you share an idea with me, I will respect the idea. I may say, that's a great idea, but we're going to put it in the parking lot, if you will. And that's not germane to achieving our goal, but everyone's heard, right? Very important for group dynamics. Okay. So let's do some key takeaways and we'll go to questions. Strategic intent defines destination, right? Strategic capacity measures the business against best in class, its ability to outperform peers and to deliver the destination. Strategic capacity drives growth and value. Should have highlighted that one. The three dimensions of growth create predictable profits, growth, and transferable value. Execution is led, but it is driven by all stakeholders. And when I say all stakeholders, I mean every employee, suppliers, distributors, even at times our customers, right? And transparency and collaborative accountability. Collaborative accountability, if you think back to the business flow scorecard, collaborative accountability, they're hallmarks of a strategic culture.